Yo, what's good, gamers? Aquilon here, and of course, welcome back to each and every one of you. I spend a lot of time thinking about needless and useless stuff in World of Warcraft that most people, I think, would find incredibly boring, but it's stuff that I really care about. And one of those is the defense of Azeroth. More specifically, the cities of Azeroth, the cities that we call home, the capital cities of each of the races. How defensible are these cities? If someone were to attack one of these cities, what would that attack look like? How could you attack it most successfully? And then, more specifically, how would you be able to defend this city to the best of your ability? We've only really had a siege on a city in World of Warcraft twice with Orgrimmar, and only really once did we ever breach the gate. To be fair, I think this is a lost, like a seriously squandered opportunity in World of Warcraft to not have more city sieges. Gilneas was sieged once and Lordaeron was sieged once, but you guys get the point, right? Like actual cities that matter. So why don't we have more sieges on something like Stormwind or maybe even Ironforge? So I decided, screw it. I'm going to make a series about this because I like talking about stuff like this. So the series is literally just called The Defense of Azeroth, and we're starting today with Orgrimmar. The reason I decided to start with Orgrimmar is, according to the developers of World of Warcraft, we were told that Orgrimmar is really a terrible city to defend. It's nigh impossible to defend, and this is one of the reasons why Sylvanas had to be so incredibly proactive in her war. It's also one of the reasons why Garrosh Hellscream ultimately got his shit kicked in, is because Orgrimmar, outside of the harbor, which, according to the developers, is really the only place that you can defend, outside of the harbor, the second someone takes the harbor, Orgrimmar is pretty much yours for the taking. I listened to what the developers had to say, and I was like, I'm not sure I agree with that. I feel like there's better ways of defending Orgrimmar than just that. Now, for those of you that might be new to World of Warcraft, maybe you clicked on this video by accident, you thought it was saying something else, and instead, here you are. Orgrimmar is the capital city of the Orcs, but also the capital city of the Horde. It is the seat of power for the Horde. It is where all of the decisions for the Horde is taken. Orgrimmar pretty much have three different, let's call them theaters of attack. That is Azshara, Ashenvale, and Durotar. Now, Azshara and Ashenvale, very, very interesting, but we'll get to them. Durotar is the one that, according to the developers at least, makes Orgrimmar such a terrible place to defend because it's open, right? There's very little in the form of mountains close to Orgrimmar that will help defend Orgrimmar. So once you have your armies in Durotar, it becomes nigh impossible for Orgrimmar to expel or to repel your armies. It's massive, large open fields. Here, I would actually argue the opposite. I would say that while, yes, it is massive open space and you can fit a crazy amount of soldiers in there, it's also massive open space. With enough trebuchets, you could really cause a lot of damage because for the attacking army, there is very little in the form of cover from attacks. Even with archers or with slingmen, you should be able to expel or repel quite a lot of people and kill quite a lot of the attacking armies. The real problem for Orgrimmar really lies in the fact that it can be attacked from three different fronts. If you are, for example, defending any of the other cities in World of Warcraft, you really only have to defend one, maybe two fronts. In Orgrimmar, it is quite literally possible to surround Orgrimmar at every single one of its entrances and cut it off. Now, for the purposes of this video, I will not be including things like mana bombs or magic that completely kills everything inside. We're going to look at it from the perspective you want to leave the city as intact as possible so that you can rule afterwards. I'm also going to exclude, for very good reason, the war of attrition. So, in other words, setting your armies up and then just waiting it out. The thing that makes it so very difficult for Orgrimmar to survive, in my estimation, is the fact that you can attack it from three different sides. And this means that the orcs will have to divide their entire defensive force among these three different entrances in order to try and repel the invaders. And if we live in a world where the orcs won't have exact information, it becomes actually pretty easy. So how would I attack Orgrimmar? Well, this is actually pretty interesting. Most people would think that since the weakness or the weak spot of Orgrimmar is Durotar, I would amass my overwhelming force in Durotar. But I would not. I would have a sizable force in Durotar, but it would not be my main force. I would then also have a decent force in Ashenvale, but it would not be my main force, because I know many of you may think, well, Akalon, go through Ashenvale. It's forests. It's pretty easy. The only real difficulty you're going to have with Ashenvale is the little corridor that you have to move through in order to get into that entrance there. But Ashenvale would give you a lot of cover. The trees would provide a lot of cover. You'd be able to hide your advance literally right up until the last minute. So why not go there? Well, I think Ashenvale offers itself a much greater advantage. You can have a fairly small force look very, very large from within Ashenvale. The trees provide enough cover that from there you could absolutely slaughter inside Orgrimmar with arrows being shot over the mountains. You can even have ballistae shooting over the mountains. So you can fool the orcs pretty simply or pretty easily into thinking that this is where your main attack is going to come from. While all the while moving your main force into Azshara. You see, Azshara have pretty open spaces, so it's pretty difficult to hide a force, but if you can keep the orcs busy on Durotar and also on the Ashenvale front, I think Orgrimmar becomes very difficult to defend on the Azshara front, just because you can storm it pretty quickly, pretty easily, while the orcs are distracted. So that is how I would take it. But I think the orcs would be stupid to defend it that way. Allow me to explain. Orgrimmar is actually one of the most defensible cities in World of Warcraft. But not if you're trying to keep the whole of it. If you were to pull your forces into Orgrimmar, so keep a couple of archers and maybe a couple of ballistae on the gates, propel and kill as many as you can before retreating inwards, Orgrimmar becomes a death trap to the attacking army. You see, if I collect all of my forces inside the crag or the drag, and on top of the drag, I control pretty much the whole of the high ground. Any army that wants to move in there has to move from lower ground to higher ground with very little in the form of elevation, very little in the form of access. The only way to get to the top is 2 elevators that can pretty easily be defended or even blown up if required. If I can hold the drag, I also have access to the underground facilities of Orgrimmar, so this gives me the ability to move attacking forces outside of Orgrimmar that can then attack from the back, and we basically just screw the attacking army inside Orgrimmar being attacked now from 2 sides. This, I think, is your best defense in Orgrimmar. Pulling in, defending the middle part of the city. Don't allow them to move closer, even if you have to collapse the entrances to the drag, so that you know you can keep the drag and the high ground. For things like griffin attacks or air attacks, you could build actual cover that will ensure that griffins will not really pose much of a threat. You can have archers set up on the mountainsides to shoot down the griffins that may or may not be attacking. That, I think, is the main way you defend Orgrimmar. Yeah, that's it. That's what I've been spending my time on, trying to figure out how do you attack and also defend Orgrimmar. Now, if you were to ask me, what do you do then? Like, once the orcs have pulled in and they're now defending the middle bit of Orgrimmar, I don't know. That's why I think it's the best strategy. Because from there, your only real option is to try and wait them out. To try and engage in this war of attrition. But since war of attrition isn't allowed in the scenario, I'm not entirely sure how you get in there. Like, once they're in there, they're pretty much nestled in, and now it becomes a numbers game. And since you are the attacking army and they have the superior position, there is every chance that you get slaughtered inside the very small and also very poorly defended outer sections, shall we say, of Orgrimmar. So while yes, the attackers will for a time hold Grommash Hold, that's pretty much all they'll hold. They won't get any further. But I would like to know from you, if you were in that situation. So you're attacking me. I have pulled my forces into the middle of Orgrimmar. I'm controlling the drag and the upper area. What do you do then? Where do we go from there? I would love to read your thoughts in the comment section down below. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you so much for watching. To all of the patrons, for your $1 a month to help keep this channel free from sponsorships that want to sell you shit that you do not need. As always, my name is Akalon, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.